Oh my goodness, how amazing is Anne, Alex, and thank you for bringing your special brand of magic to our launch party, Spiritually Fierce launch party. If you've just jumped into the group, then just, know that you are here on a spectacular day for the I Am Spiritually Fierce tribe. And we are growing in numbers, really by the minute. It seems that we're going to reach our 333. How many threes is that? 3 goal today, and maybe even surpass it. And Anne, that was just such a beautiful gift, and I am a huge fan of yours also, and I'm just so honored. Today is just blowing my mind. That was just so beautiful to have all that is speaking directly to us, to speak directly to the Spiritually Fierce movement. And just to know that even at that cosmic level, that we are being noticed. That this movement, our movement of choosing love first every single time and having the discipline to do that, that is discipline. It isn't the easy choice sometimes. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. And it's okay that it's difficult and it's hard. Now, I don't want to get off on a rant because I can. So instead, I just want to say we still have just about 2.5 hours left on the Thunderclap. So if you have not supported the Thunderclap, you can find the links in this group. You can find the links on my personal page. You can find the links on Ricci-Jane Adams' Facebook page. The Thunderclap is, if you're not aware of it, it's crowdfunding, but instead of donating your money, you lend your social media reach. So basically, you commit to, or you say, yes, I will support the launch of Spiritually Fierce, and at 3 p.m. today, Australian Eastern Standard Time, that thunderclap will go out across the world. So everybody who's pledged their social media reach to my thunderclap at 3 p.m. today, and we're up to about 153 people now, that post, one single post from 153 people, will go out simultaneously across the world. The combined social media reach is close to 150,000 people. So if you haven't joined the Thunderclap, please do, because I would love to see if we could get that up to 200,000 people jump on it. But now it is 12:30, so I'm having a little look at my schedule, and now I'm going to be taking you through our online writing workshop. So this is just an opportunity for me to share with you not the process of publishing, but I would love to share with you the process of actually getting your book from where you are to getting it finished, getting it completed. Because obviously we don't start writing a book and then because we don't want to finish it. We actually want to go through the process. We want to see it completed. And for me, that took, Spiritually Fierce took me around 2 years. Now, I would love to talk to you about what that process was like, and I'd love to answer your questions. So I looked at all the amazing questions, and I've got your notes. Yes, and Jane, I will definitely share the Thunderclap. So if anyone hasn't seen the Thunderclap, maybe Sarah, you can pop the link to the Thunderclap into this live post so that people can actually who haven't can still jump on and lend their social media reach to us, to the Spiritually Fierce movement. Let's see if we can get up to 200 people before 3 o'clock today, sharing their social media, crowdfunding, but instead of money, we're crowdfunding our social media reach, and we're offering our social media as a way to share this. But okay, let's jump into the workshop. So you guys feel free to move around. You don't have to be all quiet and silent. You can stand up, jump, move. You do whatever you like. My party here might need to refresh their cake. I've got cake. Jean has made amazing cake. I'm enjoying my cake a lot. There's a lot of good food here. You really should come next time. Okay. So, and yes, next time I'll send out invites. So, you can join us. What I want to start with when we're talking about the book is that when you are writing a book, there is got to be a why. Okay, you're allowed to be here, but you're not allowed to talk out here. my party are getting rowdy. So what I want to tell you about writing a book is, for me, is the most important thing you need to do, like all of the Spiritually Fierce things that we're talking about, is make sure that your spiritual self-esteem is intact. And what I mean by that is that we need to make sure that you are not afraid to contribute this book to the world. So a few people commented on the idea of there's so many spiritual books out there already, or just books generally. It doesn't matter if they're spiritual. It doesn't freaking matter. You are as unique as your thumbprint, as your fingerprints. Your voice is going to activate people in a way that is totally unique, totally separate, totally different to everybody else who is writing. So there is an alchemy that goes on between the writer and the audience who read that book. So the words that I share may not be the first time these words have ever been shared, but the audience who are ready to hear those words at that moment receive that book like alchemy. So it's the combination of my energy and their energy that unlocks something that even though they could go and read Greg Braden or all of my favorite spiritual teachers, that alchemy might not be there. So you cannot back away from that calling. If you're being called to write a book, you cannot look around you and say, oh, well, everyone else has already done it. You know, I always use this example. When I was in my undergraduate days at uni, I wanted to be Kate Winslet. I wanted to be an actor. I thought that was what I was going to do with my life. And, you know, people would say that is a career that's going to go nowhere because there's so many people who want to do that. But we don't not become an accountant, or we don't not become a doctor, or we don't not become whatever we are because there's already lots of other people doing it. You know, the truth of it is, if it's calling you there, it's a non-negotiable. You don't have a choice. You cannot say no to this. You are being called. But here's something I want you to know that comes from Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. The infinite is birthing an idea, or wants to birth an idea through you, and that's the inspiration, the tap on the shoulder, as she says, that you get. Now, the infinite wants to birth that vision through you, but if you don't take up the offer, the infinite is going to find another place. The infinite is going to have to find another audience for its idea because you've sat on it for too long, and it just wants to express itself. So this is how we put our spiritual self-esteem in place, and we get over our low self-esteem and we say, I'm going to write this book, whether there's 10,000 billion other people writing books or not, is that I am simply birthing the vision of the infinite through me. That is what inspiration is. And if I sit on that inspiration, if I reject that inspiration, I'm rejecting God. I'm rejecting the infinite. I'm saying, no, it's okay, cool. I don't need that, or I'll just sit on that. And you're going to turn around. And how many times have you said when you've seen a book published, you go, I was going to write that book, because the infinite had to go elsewhere because you did not respond. So do not get caught up in the bullshit story that is justifying your inertia, your inaction, your, whatever word you want to give it. That is your ego derailing you. And you need to say, no, the infinite has chosen me. And who am I to say no to God? Don't mess with that stuff. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. All right, there were lots of questions around structure. How do I take all of that content and actually put it in a way that is going to be interesting and exciting for people to read? So I'm going to work through these questions quite quickly, but you can come back and review this, of course. Do not start writing your book until you have a plan, okay? It may not be sexy, it may not be exciting, it might go against the idea of intuition, but the truth of it is this: it actually doesn't go against the idea of intuition. If you sit down with a map for your book before you begin, it does not matter if that map changes, but if you sit down with a map before you begin, you are not going to lose your way. You might rewrite the map. You might change the geography or the landscape of your book as you go. But if you don't have a map, you're going to sit down in an ocean of unending, consciousness, infinite potential, a bazillion ideas going through your head of what you could write, and you're going to be lost. You're going to be adrift at sea. You need to lock that shit down, and you need to give yourself the permission for that to change, but do not begin without a plan. And this goes to my next point, which I think is really important. What is the why of your book? Now, ideas and inspiration are brilliant, and they're one thing, but you need to know, why am I writing this book? For what purpose or what aim am I writing this book? And that can go a lot towards who is your audience. I wrote Spiritually Fierce and I want you to be clear here. This is different to being in that space of absolute being with the muse and the words are just flowing and then you're just getting them down on paper. That's a different kind of experience, and it's equally as vital to the book writing process. But when it comes to actually knowing what is the bigger mission of my book, you have to know what your bigger mission is. What is your why? My first ever business mentor, an incredible man called Ross Fletcher, said to me, pick one thing and become expert at that. And once people know you for that, you can do anything you want. you know, the idea is pick the thing that you most want to write about and stick with that. That is the thing you're going to get up for at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, when other things you will let go. If you're writing a book because it's, you know, it's a nice idea, or, you know, it could contribute to the field, or you think there's a missing, you know, something's missing in that area, that isn't going to motivate you. What you have to know is, what's my why? What is my passion? What is my purpose? What do I want to contribute to the world? And that is going to be what keeps you motivated as a writer, because things will have to change. You will have to find time that you didn't even know exist if you want to complete a book. And that's my next red hot tip, is set yourself a deadline. If you don't have a deadline, then this is just an ongoing, never ending, you know, thing that will never finish, because you have to lock it down. I look at Spiritually Fierce now, and I've actually had to force myself from stop myself from looking at it too closely, because there's 100 other ideas that I would love to include in there. There's a million different things I would change. You know, there are typos, but at some point I just had to say, this is my date. This is the date that this book is done, and this is the date I'm putting it out into the world, because if I didn't, it would have kept going. You know, Spiritually Fierce is a reflection of where I am right now, and my next book will be a reflection of where I am next time. But if I never finish one project, I can never move to the next one. You know, I can never evolve what my offer is to the world. So start where you are. Take what you're most lit up about right now and commit to writing that. So pick yourself a deadline, figure out the bigger why of your book. And you can do that by looking at, who am I writing this for? So I knew I was writing Spiritually Fierce for my tribe. I was writing it for you. I was writing it specifically for women who already knew that they are intuitive, women who already know that they're intuitive, but who need to know how to take that intuition from, I know I'm intuitive, to trusting and living that intuition. So I was very clear on who I wanted to write this for. I was not writing it, although it may have an audience bigger than that. I had to know who I was writing to. So when you lock that in, who am I actually writing this book for? And it does need to be bigger than yourself. Now, other people may say differently than that, but if it was just for yourself, then why would you do anything other than just journal? If you are writing a book, it's because you want to give it to the world. So find yourself, your audience. Who am I writing this for? And it can't just be everyone. Be very specific about who it was. For me, it was women who know that they're intuitive, but whose lives are not lining up with the vision that they have in their head, and why. Okay, I hope that answers that question. So planning and structure is really important. And look, the question came up, which I loved, of, okay, I'm writing a biography, or an autobiography, sorry. I'm telling my personal story. And what I want you to know about that is, they are the juiciest stories. People love reading autobiographies. People love hearing about other people's experiences. You know, the truth of it is, our human experiences are archetypal, which means that even though we think, oh my God, my life is so crazy or unique, no one else has ever lived this, that is simply not true. We are all awakening through a set or an archetypal pattern. And so when you write a story, other people are able to see into that story their own personal experience, even if the details are changed. But here's the thing. How do you make it, rather than just, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, because that is not good writing, and that is not an exciting story for people to read, is you have to universalize it. So you need to look, and this goes back to your why. Who am I writing this for, and why am I writing it publicly rather than just this being my own personal musings? And that is about, what is the bigger picture that I want to share? What is my message? You know, for me, it's that innate intuition combined with spiritual fierceness will activate your intuitive intelligence, and when that happens, your life will be infinite power, unlimited success, and wild abundance. And those things are, those things are my message. That's what I want to share with the world, is that it's not enough to know that you're intuitive. You have to do the work. And here are the tools that I used. So it was my personal story. And if you've read the book, or you've heard me talk about it, you'll see it's shaped around 3 turning points. So even though it's autobiographical, rather than trying to tell my whole story, I selected 3 moments that I believed articulated the message, the deeper meaning of, or the universal meaning of my life in a way that would make it relatable for others. So I believe still, though, the most juicy parts, the parts that people are probably going to enjoy reading most, are those deeply personal stories. But in order for it not to just be this happened, then this happened, then this happened, I've put it against the backdrop of the 3 immutable Hermetic laws. Now, this is because those laws are deeply personal to me as spiritual touchstones. And I looked at the context of my life and I thought, what has taken me from where I am to living a life that is turned on intuitive intelligence? And I shaped them together. So it's called, you know, to use the fancy word, intertextuality. I'm reading my story through a theory or a framework, and this is where you can see my academic training coming in here. So when you're writing a PhD, you have to demonstrate that you're contributing new knowledge to the field. Now, what that means is you don't have to come up with a brand new original idea that nobody else has ever heard of. You need to combine ideas in a new way. So I took my personal story and combined it with the 3 Hermetic laws, the immutable laws, and I told my story through those laws against a backdrop of the science of intuition and all these other ideas that I wanted to share. So when you take your personal story and you put it against a context that is bigger than your personal story, perhaps there is, you know, for example, one of my all-time favorite books, A Return to Love. A Return to Love does just this. Marianne Williamson takes her own personal journey of spiritual awakening and reads it against A Course in Miracles, or intertextually weaving together this classic spiritual text with her own personal story. If Marianne Williamson had just written a book that was just, this is my story of me awakening, and I happened to read a book called A Course in Miracles and it was good and I recommend you read it, it would not have had the worldwide multi-million selling copies that it's had, because she took it beyond the personal story, okay? She took it into a bigger spiritual conversation, and you can do that. There will be things that you have read or seen or heard or experienced, whether it's reading, you know, your life story through the female archetypes, whether it's reading it through the Hindu gods and goddesses. You know, I feel like what we are doing as good writers is combining old knowledge or knowledge that exists with our own personal stories. So we do need to know our why. Why am I writing this story? I want to share the Hermetic laws with the world because I believe that when we know these laws, we will absolutely have the keys to the kingdom. Okay, so if there's any questions, please just jump in there and ask them as we go through. So the other thing about this is there were questions around how do you get started, how do you get beyond stalling, I've got all these ideas how to combine them. You have to commit, you have to pick your date that you are going to complete this by, and let me tell you, that is just the beginning of the journey. Oh my God, you just have to ask my writing team. Sarah Allen is part of that team. She's right here on this call. She has been so instrumental in helping me get the book out there to the world. And of course, I'm not going to have time to talk about this, but I'm hoping that Rachel Birmingham will, is that writing the book is just the first step. If you actually want to go and get it out to the world, that is where the work really begins. So take joy in the writing process, because being in the cave writing is actually a privilege. It's a freaking goddamn privilege. So stop your bitching and stop your moaning. It's a freaking privilege to get to write. And if an idea is being birthed through you, you turn up every damn day. You know, I think it was Nick Cave that said, writing is my job. So at, 9 o'clock on every weekday, I sit down at my desk in front of my computer and I'm ready to write. He probably has an old school typewriter, but whatever it is, I write on my laptop. I also always have a notepad and pen with me because inspiration will hit. If you wake up at 2 in the morning with an idea, do not go back to sleep. You write that idea down because you will not remember it in the morning, even if you have all the best intentions in the world. And when that inspiration hits you, you clear your calendar, you outsource your children, you tell your husband that you are leaving home for a week. Whatever you need to do, you go and give yourself to the muse, because if you do not follow the muse when she is there, you will find writing so much more difficult. Yes, I have no trouble leaving my family for my writing at any point. They love me, they forgive me, there's no judgment. Okay, a writing team, Katie. my writing team, I guess, are the people that I use from the moment that the book was ready to go out into the world. So really, they're my marketing team. So I have Sarah Allen, who is a marketing expert in lots of different ways, but she is expert at helping self-publishing authors get their word out. I have Robin Kybert, who built my website, who's leading a Facebook campaign. I have Shanae Carey, who is doing all of my Facebook posting for me around this. And I have a beautiful guy that Sarah Allen connected me to called Joel, whose last name I can't pronounce. I will do a shout out to my team later, who has done all my typesetting, all of my pagination. I have Beck Much from Path Hunting, who has helped me go through all the processes. I have Elise Elliott from Pass the Salt, who did my design, book cover design for me, because I knew I wanted a world-class cover. You know, basically I can talk about this at another time, but this is not a job that I wanted to do alone. I wanted to take it out to the world in the most powerful way that I could. But let's get back to the writing, because this is the thing you are doing on your own. No one else can do this for you. Oh, and I, of course, had an incredible copy editor. So one thing at a time. I don't care if you've got 14,000 good ideas, write them down. Write the thing that excites you the most, because you will not keep going until you have an idea that is literally keeping you up at night. And if you need to stay up till 1 in the morning writing, or if you need to get up at 4 in the morning, you do it. No excuses. There is nothing that you can't do when you commit your soul to it, and you will have everything that you need energetically in order to keep going through your day. You know, we don't need 8 hours sleep. That's a story that we buy into. But if you believe you need 8 hours sleep and you're unwilling to compromise on that, you're going to create a life in which if you don't get 8 hours sleep, you're going to be nasty and mean to everybody. So tell yourself a different story. If you're not a morning person, pretend that 4 o'clock in the morning is still nighttime. You know, make whatever commitment that you need to make to give yourself the time to turn up for this. Because if it is trying to birth itself through you, you have to make the time. Okay, so what I want to say now is, where are we up to? Give yourself, pick one thing. Yes, no, I think it wasn't my copy editor who missed typos. I think it might have been me, because I went back and changed things later. So yes, there are mistakes in my book. It is not perfect, but I was quite happy to commit to my timeline and take imperfect action. And that was a choice that I made. And I've had a few sleepless nights around the typos, Margie, but I decided that it was okay, that the content of the book was big enough and important enough and good enough that I would just let it go out into the world anyway, because if I had kind of, you know, lost my nerve at that point, it would have delayed everything. And I really knew there was something bigger that was being birthed through me, and I really wanted to let it out into the world. So, you know, in terms of your ideas, you do need to pick your central thesis. So you need to decide, what is your contention? We're going back to academic language here, but it works really well. You know, the academic training has put me in really good stead for being able to commit to the long form. You know, it takes real spiritual metal that you need to, you know, to be able to commit to writing 60, 70, 80, 90,000 words, whatever you decide is the right length for you. You know, I absolutely believe that you need to know what your central argument is, to use academic language, or your central thesis or contention. So for me, it was, everybody is intuitive, but it's not enough unless you do the work, and here are the tools that you need. So I absolutely believe that you need to identify, once again, this goes back to the why, your central contention, because if you don't know why you're writing this book, you will lose your way very, very quickly. So how to define a topic? You know, it is really important to be well read. You know, the best writers are the most well read people, because you have a context, you have a lay of the land, you know what the world is interested in and what it's talking about, and you know, you find your unique voice within that. So read widely and get excited about what other people are putting out there, and be an avid fan of people's books, because even if the book is very similar to something you want to be writing, don't take that as a negative, take that as a positive. What it means is there's a zeitgeist, there is an appetite for what you're writing, and you know, don't imitate what you see. Find your unique voice, and then go to that. You know, I'm not very good with sort of, you know, the grammatical language and stuff, but also there's very simple things like pick your what's it called? It's like whether you're writing from the first person or the third person or whatever it is, when I write, I made a choice to use an inclusive, is it a pronoun? Oh my God, my grammar is terrible. Private school education, who knew? So everything that I write is from we. We can do this. If we commit to our spiritual fierceness, we will see this. So pick your voice that you want to write in. That can be, for me, such a significant moment where the tone of the book is set. So when I pick that, and someone who is much better with English, tell me what I'm talking about. What am I talking about there? The pronoun? Is that what it is? When I pick that, I am setting the tone. So Spiritually Fierce was my manifesto, but it was a manifesto for the movement. So I wanted everything that I wrote to sound as though, and I hope this worked, that I was including everybody else in that I was calling you to come into the movement with me and to be part of that collective action. So it was a very strong kind of style choice for me to make that decision to use the we will do this. So the other things that you could do is write in the first person, of course, or write in the third person. But make that decision early on, because the other thing you'll need to do is make sure you don't change as you're writing, because that is a real pain in the ass to change as you go back again. So are there any other questions that I haven't touched on? Because we do have a good few minutes left. I want to say, there was a question about software. I just use Word. I take my laptop with me everywhere. And this is another thing, and I'm sure all the mothers out there will understand what I'm talking about. What we can achieve in 10 minutes sitting in our car waiting for the school bell is, similar to what I could achieve in like 4 days prior to having kids. I totally understand how incredibly powerful it is to have my capacity to write when inspiration hits me. So I take my laptop with me everywhere, or I take my paper with me everywhere. How did I decide how many words to write? That's a really good question. So I kind of didn't. I knew I wanted to be at a level that would be taken seriously by the market. So I guess in my mind, Margie, even though I'm self-publishing, I wanted this book to look and feel as though it was a Hay House publication. And that was a really big deal for me as well. I probably would have waited for the rest of my life to get a publishing deal with Hay House if I hadn't given myself permission at some point to believe that self-publishing was just as valuable. And we do live in a new paradigm for publishing. Even if you get a contract with a big publishing house like Hay House, they don't do the marketing for you unless you are already a superstar. So it's a choice of whether and also I have to say, what you earn per book is going to be significantly lower than what you earn as a self-published author. So I believe, from what I know, that most authors who are published by publishing companies will earn no more than $3 a book. Now, when you self-publish, of course, the capacity to earn is much greater than that, but you are doing it all by yourself. But to answer your question, Margie, what I decided for myself was that I wanted this to be able to sit on a bookshelf in a bookstore and look as good and be as weighty as any kind of, publishing house book. So a book that came out at the time that I was writing was called The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. And I love the way this woman writes. I think that she has really brought spirituality to a really wide audience. And so I looked at the page count of her book, and I aimed for that. Now, my book all up with all of its pages is around 206 pages, and I don't know what the final word count was. It was around 65,000. Now, if I hadn't set myself a deadline, I probably could have done another 10,000 words easily, but I decided it was more important to get the book finished and commit to doing imperfect action rather than to keep it going and make it bigger and bigger and bigger, because this book is an experiment. I wanted to kind of test the waters. I wanted to see if there was an appetite for what I was writing about. I wanted to just get it done. So in a way, it was like this had been such a mental block for me for such a long time, this idea of getting published. And part of that had been that I had always put my power in somebody else's hands, and that idea that if a publishing company didn't come to me and say, we want your book, and how the hell would they? way, how would they know about me? You know, you can't submit to most publishing houses without an agent. How was I going to get an agent? I just decided to reclaim my power. I just went, well, I'm going to do it for myself. And partly what I will do with this book is create an audience so that maybe the next one will be published by Hay House. And maybe not. Maybe I won't want that. But I just wanted my book to look like everybody else's books. Now, you might be writing a book for a different reason. You might be writing a book, for example, as part of a sales funnel. You might be writing a book as like a business card for your business. And if that's the case, then you may find that, you know, 30,000 words is plenty, because as a downloadable PDF, or even as a printed book, that's cheap for you to produce. You can give them away quite easily. You know, even if you get an ISBN and you make it a book that can be sold through booksellers, it doesn't have to be as long as that. And, you know, even at 65,000 words, I think my book is pretty light on comparatively. But I also thought about the world as a whole and how we ingest knowledge, and I believe that we are becoming less disciplined as readers, and we read less, and we read less in terms of length. So I was quite happy for it to be I was quite happy for it to be a slightly shorter text, and maybe the next one will be longer. How much should an author budget to self-publish and promote? I think that's entirely up to you. You know, I went into this kind of thinking that I wouldn't put a lot of resourcing behind it, and then I got excited about it, and then I noticed other people were getting excited about it, and then I wanted to commit to more and more and more action. So I haven't actually created a budget. Don't tell Laura Elkislassie, my money manager, but she has told me that I'm doing okay, because we still have money in the bank. So I think that is an entirely personal question. What I know is that money is not the thing. You know, money is less important than your commitment to educating people and telling people, as the amazing Shannon Bush would tell us, marketing is just telling people about what you do. So I believe that the hardest thing is actually being unafraid to step out of your comfort zone and just talk about what you've written everywhere. And I've probably bored people senseless this week, but you see, that's just my perception, because I've been talking about this book this week like a mad woman, and I'm still having people post and say like, oh, I didn't know about that. And I'm like, oh my God, seriously, I'm dreaming about this thing. So you can't over promote. Spending time building up a network of incredible people, and then choosing really, really amazing advocates like Sarah Allen, who I know is doing more of the work than I'm paying her for, but she loves what I've written, and I'm so incredibly grateful for that, because she came into my life via another incredible woman, Emily Bolto, and I just trusted that. You know, I didn't know Sarah, but I knew that she was going to be the right person to help me share this book with the world. And she is working her ass off for me. And, that's an intuitive decision that I made, to work with someone that I'd never met, but I just knew she was the right person. And she read the book, and she loved the book, and she got the book. And so she was, a tiny investment that I'm making financially, but her impact will be mega because of her investment in what is being created by this movement. So I think it's much more about creating your tribe and creating your community, and being, unafraid to share that. So I really did share this journey with my tribe. I invited a book council, thank goodness for all of you. I can't remember all of your names, but my early readers were so influential in shaping the book. And I'm so grateful to you. All get a shout out in the book. You as a whole tribe, you helped me pick the cover, even though I went with a different cover in the end. You helped me go through all the process, because you helped me think through what this book was and what my offer was. And that's what I mean. This is our book, So being unafraid to share that journey as well is really important, because it also brings people along with you and it keeps you going. But you're the one who has to do the work of writing. You are the one who has to turn up every day, and you just have to set yourself targets, set yourself a word count each day. Hitting 1,000 words in an hour is not difficult for me, but you will know what you can achieve, and you have to have no excuses. So just to end, some of the things that I had to do to get this book written, I had to give up some of the things that I really loved. So I gave up sleeping. No, I'm joking. I did kind of. I was looking at a picture of myself from about a year ago. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this book has aged changed me, but it was totally worth it. No, giving up things that, even though I loved them, were not going to serve me getting this book out into the world. So I had a podcast called The Lovemakers, which I deeply loved, but I couldn't do it. It didn't fit my mission enough, and I needed my creative energy for this book. So I just stepped away from it, even though I loved doing it. I ran a bi-monthly women's circle in Melbourne called Meet Your Inner Priestess. And I completely loved that, but it was taking up time and resources that I couldn't commit to if I wanted to get this book done. So absolutely, you do need to be unafraid to surrender the things. If this call is strong enough, you will find things that you can let go of. I often, as I say, outsource my children. Because there are days, quite genuinely, and I'm not afraid to say this, where my book, my writing, and my mission is bigger than my desire to parent. Most days, would you say, Mum? Many days, but there were days where I had to take action around that, and I had to leave my home, or I had to kick them out, or I had to say to my husband, I'm actually just writing today, okay? This is what I'm doing today, because the muse is with me. Okay, I've hit my time. Thank you so much for all your amazing questions. I hope my second book will take less time to write. You know, really, in the end, this book was 2 years. But in the end, it was setting that deadline. I wrote it. I turned it into a book in 56 days. So it's not going to take a long time if you make a choice. You just have to make the choice. 1,000 words a day, 60,000 word book that would stand up against any Gabby Bernstein Press publication. 60 days, it's 2 months, baby. It's not a long time. Okay, so I'm so excited now because we are going to jump straight into announcing the winner of the Instagram I Am Spiritually Fierce hashtag competition. And as I said, I don't have one, I have 3. And I need to do this quickly because Melaine is about to jump on live and tell us how we can all absolutely increase our abundance. This woman is incredible. So I have chosen 3 winners because there were 2 women who absolutely went to town with this competition and I could not separate them. You have a place on my Intuitive Intelligence online 8-week course starting in September, valued at $895. Kira Guest, you took this out. You posted first. You did not surrender. You kept going. I am so excited. You may personally have taken the I Am Spiritually Fierce hashtag to the world. Followed very closely by Michelle Marie Whitehead, who has just absolutely created the most beautiful posts around this. So thank you. You have a place as well. And then someone else who I just completely loved, who I thought just did the most glorious post, who is so stepping into her spiritual fierceness right now. Jess Crawford, you have the 3rd place on the Intuitive Intelligence online course starting in September, and I will contact all of you to give you the details of how you can join. So I'm going to jump off now. Let's listen to Melaine. She's going to blow our minds, take our wealth to the next level. Thank you so much.